Sales in the Cloud podcast. And today we're having a very special guest of ours, Cedric, who's a senior culinary manager at Salesforce. Will be joining us on, I think it's episode, is it 16 or 17? And we had a few questions from people that I had been lucky to talk to about Cedric and bring a little bit of insight that Cedric will be joining us in here. So Cedric, over to you if you want to introduce yourself a little bit for the community and people watching us today.
Thank you for having me. Cedric, Senior Culinary Manager at Salesforce, and I've been in a role for about 4 years now.
Good. Really excited for this one. As I said a few minutes ago before we started recording, I've had a lot of questions from my end, but a few of them also coming from people who been lucky to know beforehand that you'll be joining us. So let's go for it and talk us through how did you actually get to Salesforce? I know you have a very, very, variety of experiences before you joined Salesforce. So how did it came across to you?
It's a good question because it is rather unusual for a restaurant manager like myself to find a role in either the same level in a different working environment. Despite these numerous transferable skills, working in a restaurant is very skill specific. So to find a role in a different career without starting from the bottom is a little bit rare. But like to focus more, I'd say, on myself and how I got to this, I think I arrived at a point in my career that I just needed a change, So I just started to look for in a few popular job advertisements and websites, just to take the temperature to see what was out there. And one ad more that I literally just jumped at me, and that was that Salesforce ad. The job description was very hospitality driven, but was advertised as a Monday to Friday 9 to 5. I was like, never in my life. I worked Monday to Friday, never mind 9 to 5. And I was, I've got to check it out. This is a dream. Second later, I pressed the apply button, and here I am. 4 years on the job.
No, I must imagine it's been, quite a change from what you've done in the past. And I think generally a hospitality industry is, something that people can't imagine having a Monday to Friday, weekends, holidays, bank holidays, vacation off. That's something that doesn't come very often. So it must be really exciting. Good. Biggest difference probably, or if you want to talk us through the biggest difference between working for actually Salesforce, apart from having a 9 to 5 schedule. But what was the biggest difference for you between Salesforce, any other company you've worked before? Maybe even what you personally find as the biggest change, either on personal level or professional.
Sure. I say culture is the biggest difference I can think of. A restaurant is often a small business where people work there are your family. The head chef and the general manager just might have a slight different treatment due to the nature of their role, but everyone else are very much in your inner circle. I think the greatest open door policy will struggle to replicate the proximity of working in a restaurant. There's something very special about that. Also, I think hospitality, for me, it's not a job. It's really a passion. It's something which is so deep in your roots that it's very difficult for anyone outside the hospitality world to fully grasp what it means. I mean, when service starts, your life is on pause. You're dressed up. You're almost you're a new character. Your personal belongings are in your locker. There's no phones with you. Your being is fully concentrated on a constant stream of guests coming in your way. The mindset of all your being is focused on the guest. Is so deeply rooted in a culture that the word customer is even banned. So I you noticed I called it guest. So I think this was the biggest difference, where at Salesforce or anywhere else around the world, there is a job, there is a work to do. In hospitality, there's no such a thing. You do it because it's bigger than you. You just love what you do. You just love looking after people, and whatever your own self is in the bottom of the priority list.
I know you've been with Salesforce for 4 years now, but before joining Salesforce, did you feel like the hospitality industry has been maturing in these matters, that people have become more, open-minded, understanding that, yeah, you can't pause your life for 12, hours constant, sometimes even more, right? Is that something that maybe was changing or is changing? I don't know if you're still in touch with maybe some, friends or colleagues from the ordinary hospitality world.
I am, and thanks God it's changing. I think it is very important for the hospitality industry to move forward and move at the same speed as every other, say, corporation around. The way people worked in a restaurant was a little bit difficult, different, and without that passion, it would have been difficult for anyone. That's for sure. Um, it is it is still quite difficult nowadays to get to a point where a restaurant can actually be profitable with with it will be very difficult for the restaurant to be profitable by following what the corporation are doing right now. Running a restaurant is running a really tight ship. The margin are far smaller than what we think of. Usually, when you look at restaurants, they're always busy. There's always those celebrities, and there's always something happening. That glam is really what's in the front of the curtain. In the back of the curtain is a constant struggle, constant looking at numbers, constant crunching those numbers, and trying to find ways to to make it work. It is right now not a business that is doing so well because of the nature of its business, and all the prices are currently rising up at this moment. But I'm really happy to hear that big chefs such as Tom Kerridge, Claude Bossy, Sat Baines, those guys are really at the forefront of changing the mentality. So most of those places now are open 4 days and close 3 days. So that's good. It's still a good 50 to 60 hours a week to go, but it's much more manageable when you have 3 days off. And the pay has been increased drastically, which obviously you can feel it on, say, on a bill as a guest. But I think you wouldn't mind paying a bit more when you know that the person in front of you is very well looked after. He's got some time off, and he can just take care of himself.
100%. Do you feel like it changes the kind of relationships you have with your colleagues? Because obviously, when you're like this stressed environment where you're like 12 hours, 5 days a week, even more again sometimes. At one point, I think you do feel it as a family, but a family that has to be together. So maybe there's this like tension going on. But when it's more like relaxed, you still feel that you're as close with your colleagues and teammates as if you were working with them nonstop for X amount of hours.
It's a great question again. I could talk about this for hours and hours on end. Um, being in a restaurant. So being in a restaurant, when I say it's a family, there's the good side of the family, and there's also the bad side of the family. What is the beautiful thing about this is that the family always get back together. They never mind what's going on. They always find the common ground to actually, yeah, well, you know what, I love you. Never mind what happens. I still love you. I hope you still love me, and we keep on moving on. But yes, it is tough. And when you're talking about maybe there is tension, I'll scrap maybe away. There are tensions on a constant basis, um, because of the nature of the work. First, you are very human um, dependent, and the more human dependent you are, the more potential mistake will happen. Communication gaps, clash of characters, and then you have many departments who have different priorities. You're all looking after the same guest and try to enhance someone's experiences, but your priority really differ from one another. So when you bring all of this into the mix, it can be a bit spicy, if I can use that term.
Yeah, of course. No, I can imagine. But as you said, like, yeah, families, either those real or those that you actually build yourself, they're always, they're not a steady line. It's always like a curve of up and down. So yes, you're right. Moving to a question that I was particularly very keen about. So off camera, when we spoke for the first time, you mentioned that salespeople sell the what, while you sell the why. Share with us the deeper meaning between us, what it means maybe personally even to you, and well, like in general more terms. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's I think that's my motto, and that's what I've been trying to teach every single in my team. Because sometimes it's difficult. You're just plating food, or you're just serving guests. The meaning is a bit greater than this in everything I think we do. Nowadays, I believe the power of, I think, identity and emotion is, I think, is greater than ever. The I don't think is enough to steer consumer one way or another. Um, People love to get attached to story and be part of something big. People want to be connected in a deeper sense, the emotional level. Um, so people don't only buy what you do, but they buy why you do it, and what you do simply proves what you believe. So, yes, on one hand, the product and services of Salesforce is by far, I think, the best you can find. But Salesforce is the best CRM company in the world, not just because of the product, but because it invested in a culture, um, it's invested in people, and by adding those action to their word, Salesforce not only talk the talk, but they also walk the walk. And then when a company, when the whole company is linked by the same value and are looking forward towards the same direction, it really creates a powerful force that inspire everyone around to join in. And that's why I think for us, the culinary team are doing when when a guest walks in and have a meeting with the sales executive, the account executive, the strategic, the architect, the marketers, they have the what, and they sit down, they talk about the product and the implementation. But then once you walk out of that meeting, then everything else comes into place and influence the decision. How do people look? Are they happy? How do the real estate look? How do the room, does it look great? And then if by any chance you're looked after the culinary team as we do, is the service great? Are the staff, and I say again, are the staff happy? Are they knowledgeable? Are they well dressed? Is the food well presented? I mean, all of this together really creates a full package of what Salesforce is. So I think I couldn't do my job without the sales executive, but I think the sales executive will do will have to work harder to sell their product if the real estate department and the entertainment department was not around.
That makes 100% sense. I think there was even this psychology behind like smell, like people get addicted to specific type of, yeah, I'm pretty sure. I was just trying to imagine last time I was in the tower in London, and I was thinking like, yeah, it's so true. Even like, the fact that you go up to like 29th, 6th floor, whatever it is, and the receptionist, right? They're always like, "Oh, are you all right with heights? Like, are you afraid? Do you feel confident, comfortable there?" That's true. So it's a part of a bigger picture that comes together to make the best out of the experience.
Salesforce,
Oh,
sorry to interrupt. I want to jump in again. Salesforce has a motto which is customer success as a number one, not number one, number two rule. To be fair, the first one is trust. But customer success comes from very different places. It comes from looking after them from a professional standpoint, but also from a personal standpoint. And you're talking about the smell, which is a good thing. we did not go into too much details on that, but we have about 3.4 thousand different live plants on the Joanna floor that we have in London. So that there's 250 different species, and all of them are live. Talking about smell, when someone walks on that floor, weirdly enough, your brain is just this: I'm not in an office. I'm somewhere which is a lot calmer. I can see green. I can see people smiling. I can see space. Now, I think that also really plays a good part in
That's wow, that's interesting.
it.
No, it's amazing. It's amazing the science behind it, the thinking. And I don't think I didn't realize it actually before I just mentioned the plans. So impressive. I was actually hoping you could share with us. Recently you were talking also about the experience you did, or the event you did for Women's Day, I do
Mhm.
believe. Could you share us, because I found it impressively, interesting, what you did, and I think it kind of can help people realize the whole magic that is actually behind there, because it's not, of course, it's like one thing is being the office, the looking everything nice, the whole service you receive, but another thing is actually what is behind the culinary part. So back to you.
Great. I love that event. So again, I could talk forever. Great questions all the way. So that woman network event was something very important for the culinary team, and extremely important for Salesforce. I think there's most of the corporation nowadays are working towards a more balanced male female workforce, and I think that's definitely the way forward. We should find a way to have a more diverse, I can say, culture and or work culture on the workforce. So Salesforce decided to do an event by bringing a lot of a woman CEO plus a neuroscientist to talk about how. So what are the thinking process behind what stops women to be more vocal? What stops the corporation just to bring more women into all those days? But also, um, they asked the culinary team to support this event from, say, a food and beverage standpoint. So that's good. For us as a culinary team, we did not look at this as just a meal. We thought, do you know what? There is a narrative behind it. Let's let's walk the walk. So we decided as a culinary team to go full house, literally full focus on the beautiful and super talented women that are around the world. So we decided to tailor all our food and beverage offering to women. So all the inspiration were woman chef. All the food that we bought from the farmers, from a special product, were all woman products. The coffee was a 100% woman-led roastery. All the wines, they're only 100% woman winemaker, 100% a woman-owned winery. Same for the beer. Same for absolutely everything. That, strangely enough, was a lot harder than I thought, and that actually just how can I say? That's exactly why the culinary team was involved into this, because that's there is an issue clearly around the world, and thanks goodness, their Salesforce was strong enough to start that conversation, to create this event, and I'm actually also delighted that the whole culinary team bought to that project and actually really went full on to it, because it really highlights that there is a lot of work to be done. And I'm delighted to see that the whole culinary team did its best to see that there was an issue, and now they can work on it. So any event that we do on the floor, we try to bring this mindset to it. So if anyone has the chance to be looked after by the culinary team in London, every bite of food or every glass of wine that you'll ever try, there's a deeper meaning behind it than just the product itself.
I think That's a very interesting point. And as I said, like earlier, people don't often realize it. And that's why I wanted to share that story. And yeah, I was just about to ask that. It must have been very challenging to find like all female owners or, people that actually created being females. And it's funny enough, I think it was just this week Salesforce announced that they're looking to increase, the female
Mhm.
percentage of employees they're having within Salesforce. So yeah, very happy to see that it's something that is being looked after, the matter that is being kind of resolved, hopefully
Absolutely.
soon. Okay, perfect. Moving into yet another interesting question. We know that again, world is evolving extremely quickly these days. It's very hard sometimes to keep up to date to anything you're doing. So how do you actually stay up to date on new trends and ideas from the whole culinary world?
So that's a difficult bit for me. I've made a personal decision not being on social media for a long time now, and that makes keeping with trend and news a little bit more difficult than I would like it to be. But that's a personal choice. I have a few newsletters and apps that I like to read just to keep myself up to date with what's going on. But mainly the way I keep on track with what's going on is I catch up on a regular basis with some friends and colleagues which are still in the restaurant world, um, and obviously I like to I like to dine out as much as I can. So I'd say by just meeting up with friends and also dining out, I think it gives you a broad view of what's happening around the world. Also, we we have this very open door policy within the culinary team where everyone in the team is is not just welcome, is encouraged to bring forward anything they've noticed. It could be just a picture or an idea or an article or a recipe or a story or a podcast or whatever. So every week we have an hour where the team meets together, and there's no agenda, there's no planning. There's just, hey, what's going on with your world? What did you find interesting? Talk to us about it. And most of the time there's a lot of cool stuff which is brought forward. And that really that helps the whole culinary team altogether to stay up to date. And as I mentioned, not being on social media, that's a blessing. I was very happy with it.
Oh wow. Wow, that's actually impressive, that you're not basically on a social media, but you're still very much up to date thanks to actually people around you. Um, wow. And then what you highlighted, I think is very interesting as well in terms of your team bringing up the ideas. I think that's where again Salesforce being as diverse and inclusive they are, and people basically coming from different parts of the world, obviously following still somewhere, maybe different trends or wherever. Sometimes they might feel like, okay, this is more my, from my home country, or maybe people wouldn't really recognize it in the UK, but still having that ability to, option bring it up and speak up. I think that's very,
This is
very impressive.
the culinary team is only as strong as as the whole team. I mean, if it's a one trick pony, well, it won't get anywhere. We won't be sustainable on the long term. Um, it's crucial if you want to stay good, if you want to be inclusive, if you want to keep your program alive and interesting. You have to be open minded. You must bring everyone on in the mix and listen to them very carefully. We have also another program that we do on the culinary team about this is every month we're doing a ruffle lunch. So there's a bowl on an employee floor where people can just write down, any employees can write down their email address and their name, and on a monthly basis we pick 8 names and we do a free lunch. So for us, we found that it was a great opportunity to actually try very different thing. So every month, a different person is in charge of the raffle lunch. So it's never just the head chef or never just the pastry chef. It can go from a barista to your front of house to the kitchen porter to everyone will get to it. And what brings that is that it brings accountability, ownership, pride, but also it brings so much different flavors and culture and history, and that's super powerful. I thought that once that program really came to life, I didn't feel its power at the first one, but the more that we do it now, the more I think this we if I could do it on a weekly basis, I would, because we get so much from it.
Wow, that's truly inspiring. And I think, yeah, what you said, like having that opportunity to, even if you join, like, I don't know, let's say 3 months ago, and you already can actually go ahead and propose something you want, that takes a lot. Wow. Perfect. Moving into final question. Is there one particular thing that you would say motivates or inspires you the most? But if not, where does your inspiration actually comes from?
That's a good question. That's a very good question. Wow. Inspiration, I mean, comes from many different places. I think, yeah, it keeps using the same word that I used before, being curious and open-minded uh, all the time is, I think it's important. All the time you see something new, try maybe to do a bit of research and understand the thought process behind it and how it came together. Um, I think so. With the inspiration, what I like to focus almost more on, it's not about the result, but but there's a way it came from, and from what idea it came together. How did it come together? Um, and I think understanding the original idea and intention will tell you a lot more than looking at the end result. Um, almost like let's say in a restaurant world, translating in a restaurant world, the restaurant world is not about what you do and what you serve, but mainly how the delivery of the product makes the recipient feels. And it's almost the same thing in inspiration. If you look at maybe a design choice in the Ohana flow in Salesforce office, try to understand the why is there. Is there a thought process? Is there an idea behind it? And I think that will teach that I can say that gymnastic of the brain to actually try to understand things not just for what they are, but for why they were created, and almost bringing back to, instead of the what, the why. You've got a broader understanding of what's going on.
Gotcha. That's very interesting. I think outside of culinary as well, if you think about like what you said, Ohana, for basically a real life situation, um, that's true. And at the end of the day, right, it's the saying that people buy out of feelings, and if you can genuinely make the person feel something that is close to them, or bring some feeling that they have maybe from like childhood, always in the positive line, that's like a bingo thing.
I, I tend to say that I have the best job in the world because my job is to make people happy. I mean, it's much harder than what I just said, but ultimately that's the end goal. All I have to do is to when someone walks in, let's say in my floor, or on the floor that I'm looking after, my only job is to exceed their expectation, and this person leaves the building or the premises happier or in a greater mood than they were when they walked in. That's all I have to do. Then how I do it, I'd say that it's almost irrelevant. Is it food? Is it wine? Is it design? Is it social interaction? Is it whatever it is? People come in, they're in a certain state. People leave, they have to be in a certain state. It just has to be positive.
That's amazing. I think everybody who's been watching this podcast will never leave, Ohana floor in the same way that they did before after watching this for sure. Perfect. And I have one more thing that I hope you can share with people. We always ask, what would you tell maybe somebody who is aspiring to kind of maybe leave the hospitality 9 till 6, weekends, holidays, everything. Of course, feel free to share that. But I think from what we've discussed and what you've shared with us, would there be something you want to tell maybe ordinary hospitality managers, or people who are still within, the more normal schedule, actually not normal schedule hospitality industry, like how to maybe take care of the team? Because the ideas that you've shared with us, that's mind blowing for me, and it's very inspiring. And I have a lot of friends who work within hospitality as well, that I think would be absolutely like amazed to have something similar within their employer. So yeah, whatever you feel like sharing with either managers or people just aspiring, the floor is yours.
Right. So I think I'll look at myself for this, because I think I'm the best use case. I feel like I'm a lot more productive. Maybe I don't do as much as I did, say back then, because of the sheer speed of work in a restaurant. But I think my decision making is just better, more accurate, smarter, and I think it's got a greater reach now. The work-life balance, before, I didn't think there was a balance. It's just work, and work is life. Life is work. Now that I have something which I can be very proud of, I'm in a greater place within myself. So if I can, if any restaurant manager out there is looking at this podcast, and I hope they are, I'll say, look after your staff first. They will look after your guests. If you look after your staff the best way possible, they are in the best possible environment and situation to transfer how they feel to your guest. First and foremost, your team is everything. Like everything, every decision. Actually, it's not actually just a restaurant. I think every company out there, every decision, business decision they would take, I will actually put the filter. The first filter will be staff and team. How does that affect them? And once that filter is passed, take another bit. But team and staff always forward, and I'm pretty sure every businesses will survive just fine.
I think you highlighted the mental health and being happy, and then obviously wanting to make people happy, particularly customers, is something that should not be forgotten, basically, no matter what the industry you are in, because it all goes around, back around. Perfect, great. I think that'll be it from my end. Absolutely amazing having you here. Thank you for sharing all your thoughts, ideas, what you guys do within the team. And as I said, I think everyone who's going to watch this podcast, and I hope that it will be a lot of people, will never leave the Ohana floor in the same way they did before. And that's what we did. Thank you again, Cedric, for being here.
This was great. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.